We have been talking all week about the wilderness. And I'm going to continue talking along these lines because I felt like it was important to talk about the wilderness because the wilderness is connected to these transitions in life. And we talked about the transitions of life 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago or so. And so I wanted to continue down this road as we're talking about our lives and how we're navigating and doing the things that God has called us to do. But it's important that you understand that as you are executing your life, that there's going to be times that you're going to find yourself going through wilderness or desert experiences. And so let me just say this is Fresh Baked Manna Live. My name is Melva Henderson. I'm coming to you every morning because my desire is to build your life and your faith. I want you to show up in the world strong, recognizing that you can take God's word, put it in the practicality of the everyday of your life, and then execute your life in a really powerful way, because God didn't give us his word for it to sit on the coffee tables of our homes. He wants it to be on the coffee table of your heart. And so this morning, we're going to continue talking about the wilderness. This is part 3. I'm going to start out by reading Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse number 1. And this is God speaking. He's talking to the children of Israel. He said, "Be careful to obey all the commands that I'm giving you today. Then you're going to live and you're going to multiply and you're going to enter and occupy the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for 40 years. Remember, I said it was a 4-year journey. It should have been an 11-day journey, some people say. But why did he take them through the wilderness? He goes on to say in verse number 2, to humble you, to test you, to prove your character, and to find out whether or not you would really obey my commands. And he goes on to say, yes, I humbled you by letting you go hungry. Ooh. And then feeding you with manna. I let you get hungry enough until you got down to the place that you would receive what I would give you, a food previously unknown to you and your ancestors. I love that because in the wilderness, you get to experience God, the provision of God in ways that you never would have provided, you would have experienced it before. That's one of the perks of being in the wilderness, that you get to show God, you get to see God show out in your life in ways that you had never seen him before. There are things that God will do for you when you're going through difficult times that you just will not give him place to be able to do when everything is all right. Because then you are the captain of your ship. But when things, when you get humbled, then you're a little more open to allowing God to show you some things and let you experience things that you probably would not have allowed him to experience had you not gone through your wilderness time. And so today we're going to talk about some things from the wilderness perspective. We're looking at it. And for those of you that are just joining us, we said that the wilderness is a place in your life that you have to realize you're not alone. It's a deserted place. It's a time in your life when nobody knows who you are. Things are not going the way that they used to be going. Things are not like they used to be. But you got to remember when you're going through these times that God still loves me. And his plan is intact for my life. And I'm not the only one experiencing what I'm experiencing in this drought of my life and in this time of uncertainty. And although although it may feel like it, I'm not the only one. When you think about a drought from just a natural standpoint, everybody who lives in the land is going to be affected by that drought in some way. And so the same holds true for us. All of us are being affected by the droughts of life, but God is with us. And I can't overstate that. He's with us and he's giving us what we need in these barren places, in these barren times of life. And people all over the world are going through what you and I are going through. How do you know? Because the Bible says that there's no temptation that's ever come to you but hasn't already been common to man. So you're not going to go through anything that other people have not already gone through. The deal is, the blessing in it is that you're going to get through it. You're not going to stay in it. And so all of us have challenging relationships. All of us have challenges in our marriages, with our kids, in our family, with our sisters, our brothers, our finances, struggles in our business, struggles, in our careers, in our education and academia, in our churches. All of us are trying to figure out what God is trying to do, even down to clarifying the vision of our life and the purpose for our life. All of us have been there. All of us have been in times just feeling like, man, is it worth it? Is it worth it? And so all of us have gone through it. And some of us, and here's the deal, you're either going through it, you've either gone through it, or you're going to go through it. But all of us will find ourselves in the wilderness. And so for those of you that are just joining us, we said that the wilderness is this, this time of our life that we don't like to go through it. And it may be something that, I should, when you find yourself saying things like, I should be doing better than I am. I should be further along than I am, or I'm not happy where I am anymore. These are the times that we're calling the wilderness. Times when it appears that things are dark in your life, when you struggle to make decisions, or you're challenged feeling like it's time for you to move from one place to another, but you don't have the clarity to do it. Everything is foggy. You know you're doing something great. You know you're called to do something great. You know that you're a person of destiny, but there's a struggle just to get moving every day. And it's hard for you to hear the voice of God. This is the space that we're calling the wilderness. And so, I was thinking about this morning and, thought about that. If you study the scriptures, a lot of times before somebody goes through a wilderness experience, they get a promise from God. So right before you find yourself going through something, God will tell you that he's going to do something great in your life. But what he doesn't tell you is about the wilderness part of the journey. That I'm going to take you from here to here, and you're excited about that. But what he's not going to tell you about is, but you're going to go through some difficult times before you get there. All he wants you to do is remember the promise and keep your eyes on the promise. When you think about this man named Abraham, he gave him a promise. He told him that he was going to receive land, that he was going to bless him. He told him that he was going to make him a father of many nations. And at the time, he told him he was going to make him a father. At the time, Abraham didn't have one child and he didn't have any land. He lived in this place called Ur with his father, and it was land owned by the Chaldeans. But God made a promise to him that he was going to give him land and that he was going to make him a father. And so Abraham set out on this journey to obtain the promise of God, the purpose of God, the call of God, the plan of God, whatever you want to call it. Abraham was on a journey to fulfill it. But God didn't tell him about the wilderness. He didn't tell him, okay, well, now let me tell you how this is going to roll out. Your family's going to live in a tent in a desert on the outskirts of the promised land. And along the way, as you're going to the promised land, your wife is going to be stolen twice. Your nephew, Lot, is going to be kidnapped. There's going to be strife between your herdsmen, the people that work for you, and the people that work for Lot. You're going to commit adultery and you're going to father an illegitimate child, or you're going to abandon that child and you're going to abandon his mother because you're going to have baby mama drama. God never told Abraham any of those things, but they were a part of his journey and they were a part of the wilderness. Things got dark as he was going to become the father of many nations, but God never told him about all of those things. And I believe had he told him, Abraham would have been like, no, I'm good. That's okay, God. Find somebody else to do this. But no, he didn't tell him that. He just told him, I'm going to give you land. I'm going to make you the father of many nations, and you're going to bless the whole world, Abraham. And that's what Abraham had in his sight. Then you think about Moses. God, he called Moses. He told Moses, he said, I'm going to take the children of Israel out of years of slavery, and I'm going to take them to a land that flows with milk and honey. He said, this is what I'm going to do, Moses, and I'm going to do it through you. But what he didn't tell Moses, that on the other side of the land flowing with milk and honey was the wilderness, that they would have to fight to get there, that they would have to walk through the sea, that Pharaoh's army would attack them, that they would experience a lack of water, a lack of food, have to worry about being bitten by snakes and all of that. And that along the way, they would go, through all of these different things, that they would die. The adults, everybody up to age 20 was going to die in the wilderness, and that it was going to take them 40 years to get where they were going. He didn't tell them that. He just told him he was going to take them to a land of milk and honey. And so what about you? In your life journey, as you're walking toward all that you're destined to do, all that God has called you to do, He didn't tell you about the wilderness experiences. And he's not going to forewarn you about the days and the seasons of darkness, those days when people have turned their backs on you, when you've been under attack, when the money is funny, when you're having challenges in your marriage, problems with your kids. Why doesn't he tell you? Because if he did, you would not go. And even though the wilderness would have been the quickest way to the promised land, you would have been like, no, that's okay. I don't need to go. But God's got you. So contrary to what you feel or what you may think or what it may look like, God doesn't want you to focus on the challenges or the conditions. He only wants you to keep your eye on the promise. What did he say? What did he tell you? He told you were going to have a business. You're going to have a business. You're going to go through something to get it, but you're going to have a business. Is this doubt and unbelief? Are we speaking doom and gloom over your life? No, it's just a reality. And anyone that's achieved anything great, if they would be honest, they would be able to roll out in front of you all that they've gone through. Yes, God said you were going to have your own ministry. Yes, God said you were going to publish books. Yes, God said you would be in arts and entertainment, whatever sector of society you've been called to. Yep, he said that. No doubt about it. But he didn't tell you all that you were going to go through to get it. And so like Abraham and Moses, to get to your place of promise, your place of increase, you're going to have to continually remind yourself of the promise and follow the path that God is leading you. And you're going to have to do it by faith. They had to follow with blind faith. They had to follow with faith. It's not blind because your eyes are on the things that God has spoken to you. You're going to have to follow with faith that's blind to the circumstances, blind to the natural realm, but can clearly see in the realm of the spirit, in the realm of the promise. Where God made promises to you, that's where your eyes are open. And so you're going to have to follow that faith. The Israelites had a word from God. That's it, a word, a promise. They didn't know that they would have to go through the desert. They didn't know that all the food and provision they took out of Egypt when they left was going to run out. And they were going to have to depend solely on God. They were going to have to look to God every day to bring food and fly food in every single day. They were just happy to come from under the bondage of the Egyptians. They were happy to be free. They were happy to have a promised land waiting for them. So they danced all the way from Egypt until they got into the wilderness. Because music stopped when they got into the wilderness. Why? Because never in a million years had they thought that their progression into the promise of God required a few nights in the wilderness. When God gives us a promise, a task or a journey, when he gets, the revelation that greatness awaits us, that we have to also recognize that his predetermined path for your life is what's going to get you there. And that predetermined path is going to take some twists and some turns that you are not going to be comfortable with. In Psalms 139:3, it says this: you chart the path ahead of me and tell me where to stop and tell me where to rest. Every moment, you know where I am. And so you may not see the beginning and the end. You don't have to. He's the Alpha and the Omega. You don't have to be the Alpha and the Omega. You just need to follow his leading. And you may not know it all. You don't know how it's all going to come together. None of us know how it all comes together, but we just know that it does. How? How do we know? Because the word told us. And so he wants your trust and your obedience. He wants your attention on what he promised you. Notice that it says that he's going to chart the path ahead. A lot of times we're busy trying to figure things out on our own. And so we get so overly consumed with trying to make the path ourselves. But then we end up frustrated and fearful because we can't see. We can't figure this out. We don't know what's ahead. My husband, it drives me nuts. But my husband and I, when we're in the car together, we put the GPS on. He cannot wait for the GPS to tell him what's the next turn. So I have to hold the phone in my hand and tell him before we get there, before the GPS tells us, okay, now, and it'll tell you a couple of miles ahead. In 1 mile, you're going to turn. No, he's got to know 3 miles ahead. So I've got to read the GPS to him while he's driving so I can tell him, now, when you get 3 miles ahead, it's going to tell you to make a left turn. What the devil? Just let the GPS guide, let the Spirit of God guide you. You don't have to know everything. You got to relax. You got to rest in God. You know, Skip said GPS means God, please show me. God, you show me. That's what our GPS is in life. It's the Spirit of God leading and guiding us. And so how do you GPS when you don't know the address? You can't. Your job is to allow God to guide you and to direct your path. It's already complete. He said it. Your steps have been ordered. All he wants you to do is rest in him. Keep your eyes on what he said, not the snakes on the ground. Whoa. Not the dark clouds in the sky. Your focus has to be on him, on what he promised. Just look at what he placed before you. Don't try to figure it out. Just keep looking at the promise. What did God say? Nothing else. What did God say? You know, when other voices are coming, what did God say? You know, when people are speaking to you, when things are being said to you, you know, and you're kind of like this, what did God say? What did God say? If he said that you'll have a successful business, keep your eyes on that. If he said you'll have a powerful ministry, keep your eyes on that. If he said your marriage is going to be an example to those around you, keep your eyes on that. Keep your eye on the promise. Keep your eyes on what God said. That's what's going to bring your life into alignment with what you see. But the moment you get your eyes off of him is the moment that you're going to begin to sink. Remember Peter? Peter took his eyes off of Jesus and started looking at the sea. He started looking at what was going on around him, right? But what happened? Even though he did that, the mercy of God was there for him. Jesus said, come on, Peter, get up. And so he's working it out for you. He's doing his part, you know, on the down low. Even if you can't see it, you got to trust him. He's working on your behalf. You know, even when things are going on in my life, I tell myself God is working in the unseen realm. God is working this out in the unseen realm. He's making this right in the unseen realm. I'm going to tell you all something that happened to me this week. You know, my husband and I were working with an organization, a car company, and somebody falsified some documents about us. And so these documents were falsified. And so I sent a letter to the president of this company. And I sent the letter to the president of the company. And I said, listen, this is what's going on. This is not right. You all are messing with our credit report. We have stellar credit. You're gonna have to fix this. And so I got on the phone with someone in their corporate office. And so initially we were going back and forth with one another, and it got pretty heated. And the Spirit of God said to me, I told you goodness and mercy is going to follow you all the days of your life. Keep your eyes on what I said. And so immediately I took my eyes off of what I was experiencing. And I said to the person on the phone, I said, wait a minute. I said, first of all, I apologize for talking to you the way I was just talking to you. I said, I made this personal, and this is not personal between me and you. I said, and the Lord just said to me, goodness and mercy is going to follow me all the days of my life. And the person on the other side said to me, wow. And then as we were talking, as she and I were talking, God was working it out on our behalf. And the balance, the amount that they said that we owed, dropped from the amount that we owed to zero balance. While we were talking, what happened? I kept my eyes. I had to get my eyes off of what I was experiencing in that moment. And I had to get my eyes on what God said. He said, goodness and mercy is going to follow you. I had to take my eyes off of what was, I was upset. And I was fearful that something was going to bring me down instead of causing me to be triumphant. And so what did I do? I had to obey God in that moment. Had I not obeyed God in that moment, I'm telling you all, I would have suffered. And so what am I saying? I'm saying you got to keep your eyes on the promise. This is important because as you make the determination to follow the plan of God, when you say, yes, Lord, I will obey your word. I will go your way. I will fulfill your plan for my life. I'm going to, no matter what sector of society it's in, I'm going to do my business. I'm going to do what you called me to do. All hell's going to break out. It's going to break out. It's going to fight you. It's going to oppose you where you're going and what you're doing. People will walk away from you. Money's going to seem like it's drying up. Relationships will turn ugly. What's happening? The enemy is fighting to make sure that you don't become the person that God says that you already are on the inside. We're just waiting for it to come and be manifested on the outside. And so he's going to fight to ensure that you don't do what God has called you to do, that you don't fulfill the promise of God. Why? Because the promise of God in you is locked into the promise of God in somebody else. And he does not want to see collective victory in our lives. And so what do we have to do? We have to be determined, have our eyes single-minded. He said that if your eye be single, then your whole body is going to be filled with light. What does that mean? It means that if you keep your eyes on what God has spoken to you, even though there's darkness all around you, there's going to be light all in you. Darkness can be all around you, but within you, there's going to be light. So you will always have your path shining. Your direction will always be clear. His word will be a lamp to your feet and a light to your path. So there'll never be any darkness for you. Why? Because I'm keeping my eyes on what God said to me. So where did he promise to take you in life? What is it that's dangling in front of you? What did he reveal to you in his word concerning his promise? Is it your children? In his word, what did he say about your kids? He promised to deliver your children and set them free from every addiction and even the customs of this world. Keep your eyes on that promise. Is it your marriage? Your marriage may be in a mess right now, but God is the one who instituted marriage, and he's got a plan to make your marriage an absolute success. But you got to keep your eyes on what he said about it. Keep your eyes on his promise. That's your focus. The promise of God, the spoken, decreed word of God. What did God say? What did God say? That's why when Jesus was being tempted by the devil in the wilderness, when Jesus was being tempted by the devil, what did he say? It's written. It's written. And how are you going to know that it's written if you're not looking and reading your Bible? How are you going to know what's written? How are you going to be able to rebut what the enemy says to you if you're not paying attention, if you're not attending to his word, inclining your ears under his saying, not letting them depart from your heart, keeping them in your mouth? What did he say? Because my word is life to anybody that finds it, and health to all your flesh. It's health to everything that may be sick in your life, sick marriages, sick business, sick ministry, whatever it is. His word is health and healing for your life. And so just remember, the wilderness is about the wilderness. It's not the wilderness. How do I want to say it? The wilderness is not about the wilderness. The wilderness is about the promise. It's about preparing you for what God has in store for you. It's about what you learn in the process. And although it may not feel like it, he'll be right there delivering you, protecting you. But you got to keep your eyes on what he said. But there's snakes there. There's serpents there in the wilderness. Keep your eyes on the promise. Yes, they're there. He knew that they were there. He knew that the enemy had the potential to walk into the garden or to creep into the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve were there. He knew it. He always knows that the serpent is there, right? It's dry. Nothing's happening in my life right now. Keep your eyes on the promise. Everything is falling apart and nothing is going like it should. Keep your eyes on the promise. There's no water. There's no provision. Keep your eyes on the promise. No matter what you're experiencing during this season of your life, keep your eyes on the promise. Keep your eyes on what God said, because he is going to do what he promised you. One time the Lord said this to me, and I'm going to close with this. Every promise I give you, cuddle it like it's a baby. Hold on to it like it's your baby, like you do babies. Hold on to it. Nurture it, because I'm going to bring it to pass in your life. You keep sickness. You keep disease. You keep things away from what I give you. Keep your eyes on me. I hope I said something today that's blessed you, resonated with you, that's helped you, because my desire is to see you become the best version of you that you can be. Some of you all are going to walk in businesses today, or you're going to be encountering the world today. And I'm telling you, the world is not kind. It's not kind. And so, there are people that are out there hurting and broken. And God wants you to show up on the scene being the best version of you that you can be, so that you can help them. This is Fresh Baked Manna Live, where we develop your life and your faith every single day so that you can show up in the world strong. Love you guys. Talk to you tomorrow. See you later. Bye-bye.